the actual size and purpose of the Trojan horse. Few artifacts from antiquity are as renowned or as misconstrued as the Trojan horse. For millennia, it has represented treachery, strategic deception, and the devastating outcomes of misplaced confidence. It is present in children's literature, films, military metaphors, and even cybersecurity terminology. Despite its cultural prominence, most individuals possess only a superficial understanding of the nature of the Trojan horse, its actual size, and the reasons behind its construction. Was it a colossal artificial sculpture sufficiently large to conceal an entire army? A symbolic representation rather than a tangible structure? Or was it entirely unreal from the beginning? To comprehend the Trojan horse accurately, it is essential to eliminate contemporary exaggerations and focus on ancient sources, archaeological context, and scholarly analyses. What arises is a considerably more nuanced and compelling narrative than the simplified legend with which most of us were raised. The Trojan horse in classical sources. The Trojan horse initially appears in Greek epic tradition, most notably in the Odyssey by Homer and subsequently in the Aeneid by the Roman poet Virgil. Interestingly, the conclusion of the Trojan War itself occurs off-stage in Homer's Iliad. The horse appears later in the narrative, within poems and plays that elaborate upon the conclusion of the conflict. According to these accounts, after 10 years of unsuccessful attempts to breach Troy's formidable fortifications, the Greeks simulated their withdrawal from the conflict. They departed, leaving a substantial wooden horse near the city gates, and then sailed away, concealing their fleet in the vicinity. The horse was offered as a tribute to the deity Athena, purportedly intended to guarantee the safe return of the Greeks to their homeland. Despite warnings, most notably from the Trojan priest Laocoon, who warned, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts," the Trojans allowed the horse into their city. That evening, Greek combatants exited the interior of the structure, opened the gates, and permitted the returning army to sack Troy. That is the well-known legend. But what are the specifics? What were the intended dimensions of the Trojan horse? Ancient manuscripts seldom provide precise measurements. However, they do offer valuable indications. Virgil characterizes the horse as mountain-sized and sufficiently lofty to overshadow the walls of Troy. Nonetheless, poetic embellishment is prevalent in epic literature. Homer, whose description is more concise and restrained, merely describes it as great and tall, without employing dramatic comparisons. Contemporary scholars typically concur on several fundamental aspects. The horse needed to be sufficiently large to conceal exceptional warriors, probably accommodating between 20 and 40 individuals. It needed to be sufficiently compact to be transported by the Trojans, utilizing pulleys and rollers. It needed to pass through Troy's gates, which were large but not without bounds. Based on these constraints, historians estimate that the horse may have stood approximately 20 to 30 feet tall, comparable in scale to a small building or the superstructure of a large ship. This would render it imposing while remaining consistent with the physical plausibility of Bronze Age construction methods. It was almost undoubtedly hollow, constructed from wooden beams and planks, potentially reinforced with internal supports. Greek shipbuilders, renowned for their expertise in timber construction, would have possessed the capability to accomplish such a feat. The rationale for a horse. The selection of a horse was not arbitrary. In historical warfare and symbolism, horses conveyed profound significance. Troy was intrinsically linked to horses, so much so that the city was occasionally referred to as horse-taming Troy. Horses represented affluence, nobility, authority, and divine blessing. Furthermore, the horse was revered by Athena and Poseidon, both of whom played pivotal roles in the conflict. Presenting a horse as an offering enhanced the plausibility of the deception. Destroying it entirely might be perceived as an offense to the gods, a risk the Trojans were reluctant to assume. In certain versions of the myth, the Greeks asserted that the horse was constructed so large specifically to prevent the Trojans from carrying it into the city. Ironically, that explanation succeeded in convincing them to do precisely that. The objective: infiltration rather than intimidation. Despite contemporary portrayals, the Trojan horse was not intended to instill fear in the Trojans or to coerce them into capitulation. Its intention was considerably more subtle and significantly more perilous. The horse fulfilled three key strategic roles. 1. Psychological manipulation. After a decade of warfare, the defenders of Troy were completely fatigued. The perceived Greek withdrawal engendered a misleading sense of triumph and reassurance. 2. Manipulation through religion. Framing the horse as a sacred offering exploited Trojan religious beliefs, thereby rendering them hesitant to eliminate it. 3. Strategic infiltration. Most notably, it enabled Greek soldiers to circumvent the otherwise impregnable fortifications of Troy. Instead of launching a direct assault on the city, the Greeks manipulated Troy's own decision-making processes against it. What was the number of soldiers present? Ancient sources exhibit considerable variation regarding this detail. Some accounts mention particular heroes: Odysseus, Menelaus, Diomedes, and others, implying a select group of distinguished combatants rather than an entire army. Estimates vary from approximately 12 to 40 individuals. This is practically reasonable. An excessive number of personnel would have necessitated a significantly larger structure, thereby elevating the likelihood of detection and potential structural failure. A small, well-trained contingent was adequate to breach the gates and signal the fleet's re-entry. The horse was not employed as a means of transportation for conquest. It was a crucial item. Is the Trojan horse a historical reality? This marks the point at which history and myth commence to merge. There is no archaeological evidence supporting the existence of a gigantic wooden horse employed during the sack of Troy. Excavations at Hizarlik, the site broadly recognized as Troy, reveal evidence of destruction, circa 1200 BCE, indicative of conflict, yet lacking indication of a particular cause. Some scholars contend that the Trojan horse was symbolic, potentially signifying a siege engine, such as a battering weapon draped in animal skins, a ship, as horses were occasionally employed as metaphors for vessels, a ritual or religious allegory, subsequently literalized through narrative. Some hold the view that it may have been a genuine but amplified event, a modest structure that became more remarkable over successive generations through oral tradition. What is most significant is not whether the horse existed precisely as depicted, but rather what it symbolizes, the enduring significance of the narrative. The Trojan horse endured because it embodied a universal aspect of human conflict, achieving victory through ingenuity rather than sheer strength. In Greek culture, ingenuity, metis, was highly valued. Odysseus, the architect of the scheme, was esteemed not for his physical prowess, but for his ingenuity. The horse served as an example of strategic reasoning, cautioning subsequent generations that walls and weaponry are ineffective if discernment is lacking. The narrative additionally serves as a moral warning. Troy did not collapse due to the fragility of its walls. It collapsed due to its populace neglecting warnings, undervaluing their adversary, and placing trust in appearances rather than evidence, contemporary interpretations, and misapplications. Today, the Trojan horse has assumed a significance far exceeding its origins in ancient warfare. In the field of cybersecurity, a Trojan denotes malicious software concealed as a benign entity. In political and commercial contexts, the term refers to clandestine tactics concealed within seemingly innocuous activities. Ironically, these contemporary interpretations frequently amplify the original narrative, depicting the horse as a colossal, overt menace rather than the nuanced deception it truly was. The genuine Trojan horse succeeded precisely because it did not appear threatening. The truth beneath the legend. When devoid of poetic ornamentation, the Trojan horse was probably substantially sized, yet not unmanageably large. Meticulously crafted employing established Bronze Age methods intended to leverage religious faith and human psychology, utilized by a select group of elite warriors, an emblem that expanded in significance through centuries of oral tradition. Whether literal or symbolic, its efficacy depends on how accurately it depicts the realities of war and human conduct. Final remarks. The Trojan horse was not merely a large wooden effigy concealing an army. It was a deliberate act of deception, executed with meticulous precision and intent. Its dimensions were formidable yet functional, its shape profoundly symbolic, and its purpose overwhelmingly efficacious. More than 3 millennia later, the narrative continues to reverberate because the underlying lesson remains pertinent. The most significant threats are frequently those we allow within ourselves. If you appreciated this in-depth examination of ancient history and mythology, please like this article, subscribe for additional comprehensive analyses, and leave a comment indicating which legendary enigma you would like to see explored next.